He's planning to surprise me with divorce papers on Christmas, but I've already gifted all his family heirlooms to charity in his name. 15 years of marriage teaches you a lot about timing when to speak, when to stay silent, and exactly how long it takes your husband to drive home from his weekly late meetings, which I now know were consultations with his divorce attorney, as I finish wrapping the last empty box that once held his great-grandmother's diamond necklace. I can't help but smile. Some Christmas surprises arrive early. I didn't mean to find the papers. Isn't that how these stories always begin? An innocent search for a misplaced document, a drawer left slightly ajar, a moment of curiosity that changes everything I was looking for. Our old tax returns, James always kept them in the bottom drawer of his mahogany desk, organized by year in cream-colored folders. The divorce papers were tucked beneath them, crisp and white, waiting for their Christmas debut. My hands didn't shake when I read them. That surprised me. 15 years reduced to 12 pages of legal jargon. Our marriage dissected into assets and liabilities. The date at the bottom caught my eye. December 25th. James always did have a flair for dramatic timing. I could picture it clearly. Him rising from his seat at the Christmas dinner table, our family gathered around Grandmother Sterling's antique tablecloth. The turkey getting cold as he delivered his rehearsed speech. That was 3 weeks ago. I've watched him since then, noting how he checks his phone when he thinks I'm not looking. How he lingers in his study late into the night. The signs were there long before I found the papers. I just hadn't wanted to see them. The late meetings, the hushed phone calls, the sudden interest in our financial records. All the classic symptoms of a marriage in its final stages. I remember our last Christmas together, though James doesn't know it's our last. Not yet. We stood in this very room decorating the tree with his family's collection of antique ornaments. Each one had a story, a history carefully preserved through generations. James told me those stories when we first married, his voice full of pride and tradition. I'd listened attentively, cataloging each detail, understanding the weight of being entrusted with these precious pieces of his family's legacy. "You're better at organizing these things than anyone in the family," he'd said, handing me a delicate glass angel from the 1890s. That same angel now sits in a donation box, carefully wrapped in tissue paper, ready for its new home at the City Museum's Christmas exhibition. A generous gift from James Sterling. 3. According to the paperwork, the grandfather clock in the hall. Another family heirloom times midnight, pulling me from my memories. I check my watch against it out of habit. James insists on winding it precisely every Sunday, maintaining its accuracy with almost obsessive dedication. He doesn't know that next Sunday, it will be keeping time in the Children's Hospital lobby, a testament to his charitable nature. I move through our house, our Museum of Sterling family history. With practice, ease, everything is exactly where it should be, at least for now. The Tiffany lamp in the study, the collection of first edition Dickens in the library, the Victorian silverware displayed in the dining room. Each piece has been photographed, documented, and assigned a new destination. The donations have been arranged in a careful sequence, time to unfold. Like a symphony building to its crescendo in our bedroom, James sleeps soundly, unaware of my midnight activities. I watch him for a moment. This man who thinks he's orchestrating the perfect exit. He looks peaceful, probably dreaming of his perfectly planned Christmas surprise. I wonder if he's rehearsed his speech yet, practiced his expressions in the mirror. James has always been meticulous about presentations. I return to my wrapping, each empty box, a perfect decoy for the missing treasures. Then they take their places beneath the Christmas tree, maintaining the illusion until the moment of revelation. The irony doesn't escape me. I'm wrapping empty boxes while James wraps up our marriage, both of us preparing surprises for Christmas Day. Tomorrow, the first donation will be announced, a small piece but significant enough to make the local papers. James's Grady tan pearl necklace, given to the women's shelter in his name. A wonderful gesture of holiday generosity from a prominent community member. I've already prepared his response for when he sees the announcement, a mix of confusion and anger that he'll have to swallow in public. After all, how can he deny making the donation without looking like a monster? The last box is finished, wrapped in expensive paper with a perfect bow. I place it with the others in the closet, each one labeled with the name of the family heirloom it supposedly contains. 15 years of marriage teaches you a lot about timing, but more importantly, it teaches you about patience and revenge like the perfect Christmas. Dinner requires both. The next morning brings the first ripple in my carefully constructed plan. Over breakfast, James reads the newspaper, his coffee growing cold as he stares at the small article on page 3. Local women's shelter receives historic pearl necklace from Sterling family. I butter my toast with steady hands. "Waiting, Eleanor," he says, his voice eerily controlled. "Did you see this?" I take the paper, pretending to read the article I helped craft. The photograph shows the shelter's director holding Great Aunt Margaret's pearls, beaming at the camera, the pearls that should be locked away in our vault, preserved for the next generation of Sterling women. "How generous of you, darling," I say, matching his careful tone. "Your great aunt would have approved." The muscle in his jaw twitches a tell. I've learned to read over 15 years. He can't deny making the donation, not without appearing heartless. The Sterling family name carries weight in this town, built on generations of carefully curated public appearances and social standing. The Sterlings arrived here in 1842. James had told me during our courtship they built their fortune in shipping, then banking each generation, adding to the family's prestige and collection of artifacts. Their history sits in every corner of our house, or rather it used to. I remember the day James's mother first showed me the family. Vaults months after our wedding, Victoria Sterling stood straight-backed among the treasures, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, reciting the provenance of each piece like a curator giving a private tour. "This pocket watch," she'd said, lifting a gold timepiece from its velvet nest, belonged to James's great-great-grandfather. He was wearing it when he signed the papers to establish the first Sterling Bank. The watch now ticks away in a display case at the Historical Society. Another generous donation from her son. The responsibility of preserving these pieces will fall to you. Victoria had told me that day as the wife of the Sterling heir, "You'll be their custodian." Her eyes had measured me, weighing my worthiness. I'd stood straighter under her gaze, eager to prove myself equal to the task. For 15 years, I was the perfect custodian. I cataloged each piece, researched their histories, and maintained their condition with professional dedication. The annual insurance appraisals were my responsibility, along with updating the family archive. No one knows the true value of the Sterling collection better than I do, both monetary and emotional. James is still staring at the newspaper, his breakfast untouched. I can see him calculating, wondering if this was a clerical error, a misprint, or something more sinister. He won't call the shelter to verify. That would mean admitting he hadn't authorized the donation. The Sterling family doesn't air its confusion or dirty laundry in public. "I have meetings all day," he announces, standing abruptly. "Don't wait up once he's gone." I retreat to my study, the room where I've spent countless hours documenting the Sterling legacy. The leather-bound inventory books line one wall, each volume a careful record of the family's accumulated wealth. I pull down the most recent one, running my finger down the list of items next to Great Aunt Margaret's pearls. I make a neat checkmark, the grandfather clock times 9, and I begin my daily routine. To anyone watching, the housekeeper, the gardener, the endless parade of Sterling family members who drop by unannounced, nothing has changed. I'm still the devoted wife, the careful preservationist, the trusted keeper of family treasures in the vault. I select the next piece, a Fabry egg purchased by James's grandfather during a pre-war trip to Europe. Victoria loves to tell the story at dinner parties, how her father-in-law smuggled it out just before the borders closed. Protecting this piece of history, by tomorrow evening, it will be the centerpiece of the city. Museum's winter exhibition. The donation papers are already prepared, each detail carefully considered. The Sterling family has always been generous with cultural institutions, especially during the holiday season. One more gift won't raise immediate suspicions, though. James will know. He'll see the article, recognize another piece of his heritage slipping away, and be unable to stop it without raising uncomfortable questions. My phone buzzes a text from Victoria, inviting me to tea. These weekly meetings began after I married James, her way of grooming me for my role as guardian of the Sterling legacy. She'll want to discuss the pearl necklace to understand why her son would make such a decision without consulting the family council. I text back my acceptance over Earl Grey and P4s. I'll listen to her subtle, probing offer appropriate murmurs of surprise and suggest that perhaps James is embracing the true spirit of Christmas after all. Isn't generosity a sterling family tradition in my study? I open my laptop and check the schedule of donations. I've carefully arranged each piece has been matched to as an organization that can use it immediately, making recovery impossible once the truth emerges. The timing is precisely calculated, frequent enough to unsettle James, but not so frequent as to raise public suspicion. Before Christmas, the Fabry egg documentation is ready for submission. The museum's director was delighted by the offer, eager to include such a prestigious piece in their holiday display. The papers list James as the donor naturally, his signature practice from years of checking our joint tax returns. Looks perfect at the bottom of the form. I close the inventory book and return it to its shelf through the window. I can see the garden where we held our wedding reception. The Sterling family silver gleamed on tables between roses and lilies, the same silver that will soon be distributed among 3 different charitable organizations. Each piece will find a new home, carrying its history to a new setting, while the family that hoarded them for generations watches their legacy scatter like leaves in a winter wind. Victoria's words echo in my memory. "Yuk be their custodian." She never specified how I should custody them. Sometimes the best way to preserve history is to set it free. Tea with Victoria. Sterling proves to be an exercise in restraint. As we sit in her immaculate drawing room, surrounded by yet more family heirlooms, she delicately probes the subject of the pearl necklace donation. "I must admit, dear," she says, stirring her tea with a sterling silver spoon that will soon find its way to a soup kitchen, "I was surprised by James's decision. Those pearls were meant for his future daughter. James has always had a generous heart." I respond, the lies smooth on my tongue. He mentioned wanting to make a difference this Christmas. Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows rise slightly. We both know this isn't true. James hasn't mentioned anything because James hasn't done anything, but she won't contradict me. The Sterlings never contradict each other in front of others, even family. By marriage after leaving Victoria's, I drive downtown to meet with Sarah Chin, the director of the local children's hospital. My research identified her organization as perfect for the next phase of my plan. They're building a new wing, desperately seeking donors, and most importantly, they move quickly with donations. Mrs. Sterling. Sarah greets me warmly. I can't tell you how excited we are about James's offer. I smile, settling into the chair across from her desk. The hospital's conference room windows offer a view of the construction site where the new wing will soon stand. James believes in supporting concrete changes in our community. I say, pulling out the documentation for the grandfather clock donation. He particularly likes the idea of having it in the new lobby. Sarah's eyes widen at the photographs. The clock's estimated value would cover a significant portion of their equipment needs. This is incredibly generous, she manages. The Sterling family has always believed in giving back. I reply, the words tasting like ash. We'll need the announcement to go out tomorrow. Of course, James insists on inspiring other donors before the holiday fundraising deadline. Back in my car, I check another name off my carefully curated list. The research took weeks identifying organizations that would not only accept the heirlooms, but put them to immediate use. Each piece needed to be matched perfectly, the timing orchestrated like a symphony. My phone buzzes with a text from James working late. "Don't wait up perfect." This gives me time for the next step. I drive to the city's largest homeless shelter where the director, Marcus Johnson, is expecting me. The Sterling Family Silver Service. All 48 place settings. We soon be helping serve meals to those in need. We've never received anything like this. Mark says, examining the detailed providence I've provided. "Are you sure Mr. Sterling wants to donate the entire set?" "Absolutely." I assure him he believes silver is meant to be used, not locked away in a vault. We'll need the press release to go out by Friday. Each donation is strategic. Each announcement timed to create maximum impact while maintaining plausible deniability. James can't question any single donation without appearing selfish. Can't stop them without admitting he's lost control of his own narrative at home. I update my spreadsheet. The donations are color-coded by date, organization, and estimated family reaction rate. Red for the pieces Victoria will mourn most deeply. Blue for the ones James's sister Margaret might try to recover. Green for the items that will cut James the deepest, I've learned. That revenge-like art restoration requires a delicate touch. Too much too soon would raise alarms, too little too late. Would dull the impact. The timing must be perfect, building to a crescendo that will peak precisely when James attempts to serve those divorce papers. My laptop pings with a news alert. The museum has announced the Fabry egg donation. The article includes a quote from James crafted from previous interviews about family philanthropy. By the time he sees it, the egg will already be in its display case, surrounded by admiring visitors. The weight of what I'm doing hits me sometimes, usually late at night when the house is quiet. The sterling legacy, carefully preserved for generations, scattered to the winds by the very person they trusted to protect it. But then I remember the divorce papers dated for Christmas Day, and my resolve hardens. I pull up my research files on the remaining organizations the art museum is next. They're planning a special exhibition of Gilded Age decorative arts. The Sterling family's Tiffany lamp collection will make a stunning centerpiece. Then the Historical Society, eager to display the first sterling bank ledgers and that gold pocket watch, each piece finding a new home, each donation another twist of the knife. James returns home close to midnight, his tie loosened, smelling faintly of scotch. He doesn't mention the Faber egg, but I can see the tension in his shoulders, hear the slight tremor in his voice when he asks about my day. Just the usual. I tell him not looking up from my book tea. With your mother, some charity meetings. Nothing exciting. He pauses in the doorway, perhaps wanting to ask more, to demand explanations. But that would mean admitting something's wrong. And James Sterling never admits weakness. Instead, he retreats to his study, where he'll no doubt stare at the empty space where the Fabry egg used to sit in bed later. I review tomorrow's schedule. 3 more donations to arrange, each one precisely timed and placed. The organizations have been vetted, the paperwork prepared. The press releases drafted like a chess player, thinking several moves ahead. I've planned for every contingency. The irony doesn't escape me. I'm dismantling the Sterling legacy, using the very skills they taught me to preserve it. Victoria's lessons in maintaining appearances. James's tutorials on managing public perception. The family's obsession with control and image. They've given me every tool I need to destroy them. The morning headlines make me smile. Over my coffee, Sterling family continues holiday giving spree. The article features a photo of the homeless shelter's dining room, freshly set with the Sterling family silver. James hasn't come down for breakfast yet. He's been sleeping later these days. Dark circles forming under his eyes as he struggles to understand what's happening to his carefully ordered world. Today's agenda is ambitious. The Tiffany lamps to the art museum, the rare book collection to the university library, and the Victorian jewelry suite to the Women's History Museum. Each piece has been photographed, documented, and matched with its new home. The organizations are eager. Their press releases ready, their gratitude effusive. Your husband's generosity is extraordinary, says Dr. Reynolds, the university's rare book curator. As she examines the first edition Dickens collection, we never expected such a magnificent donation, James believes. Education should be accessible to everyone, I reply. Watching as she gently handles the books that once lined our library walls, he particularly wants students to have access. Access to these treasures, the lie comes easily now. Smoother with each telling. James's generosity has become the talk of the city, his apparent transformation from careful preservationist to philanthropic revolutionary, drawing admiration and speculation in equal measure at the art museum. The director practically vibrates with excitement as the Tiffany lamps are uncrated. These will be the centerpiece of our art nouveau exhibition, she gushes. Mr. Sterling's timing couldn't be better. I nod, remembering how James used to boast about the lamps at dinner parties, recounting how his grandfather collected them piece by piece. Now they'll light other people's stories. They glow, reaching beyond the confines of our carefully guarded walls. The Women's History Museum is my final stop. The Victorian Jewelry Suite, a complete set of diamonds and sapphires commissioned by James's great-grandfather for his wife, will feature in their upcoming exhibition on women's social history. These pieces tell such important stories, the curator says, arranging the necklace in its new display case. We're honored that Mr. Sterling chose to share them with the public back home. I find a message from Margaret, James's sister, unlike Victoria's carefully worded inquiries. Margaret's text is direct. What's happening with James' mother's having fits about the donations I craft? My response carefully. He seems focused on giving back this Christmas. You know how private he is about his charitable decision. Margaret's reply comes quickly. This isn't like him. He's right. Of course, the James she knows would never willingly part with a single piece of the Sterling legacy. That James is currently in his office, probably staring at his phone as news of each donation hits the local media, unable to stop what he doesn't understand. The doorbell rings. It's a reporter from the city newspaper hoping for a comment on the family's unprecedented charitable giving. I invite her in, playing my role as the wife, perfectly, James believes. This is the true spirit of Christmas, I tell her. Seated in the drawing room where fewer and fewer heirlooms rest in their accustomed places. The Sterling family has been blessed with so much history. He feels it's time to share that history with others. The reporter scribbles eagerly. No doubt, thinking she's getting an exclusive insight into the motivations of one of the city's most prominent families. What she's really getting is another piece of my carefully constructed narrative. Another thread in the web. I'm weaving around James after she leaves. I update my inventory. 3 more major donations orchestrated today. Each one strategically placed for maximum impact. The organizations have been chosen not just for their prestige or need, but for their efficiency in processing donations and their enthusiasm for publicity. James comes home earlier than usual, his face tight with barely controlled anger. The Dickens collection, he says. Without preamble, the library is announcing it tomorrow. Yes, I reply calmly, not looking up from my laptop. They're quite excited about it. He stands in the doorway, struggling with himself. I can see the questions he wants to ask, the accusations he wants to make, but he can't not. Without revealing his own secrets. Not without admitting he's lost control of his own narrative. I have calls to make. He finally says, retreating to his study. I check my watch, right on schedule. By now, the Art Museum's press release about the TIFF lamps should be hitting the evening news cycle. The Women's History Museum will wait until tomorrow to announce their acquisition, giving each donation its own moment in the spotlight. Victoria calls just before dinner, her voice strained. Eleanor, dear, is everything all right with James? Of course, I assure her he's just embracing the season of giving. These pieces were meant to stay in the family, she says. An edge of desperation creeping into her usually controlled tone. Family legacies can be preserved in many ways, I reply. Thinking of the divorce papers still hidden in James's desk, sometimes sharing them with others, only enhances their value after hanging up. I review tomorrow's schedule. More donations, more press releases, more carefully crafted statements about James's generous spirit. Each piece, finding its new home. Each announcement, another crack in the Sterling family's facade of control. The grandfather clock now keeping time in the children's hospital. Lobby would have chimed 8 by now. Its absence in our front hall feels like a victory. A gap in the Sterling armor that grows wider with each passing day. Soon there will be more gaps than armor, more absence than presence, until all that remains is the empty shell of their precious legacy in James. With his divorce papers dated for Christmas Day, has no idea that his surprise is about to be eclipsed by my own carefully orchestrated symphony of loss. Christmas Eve arrives with a blanket of snow and a flurry of last-minute preparations. The Sterling family mansion, now significantly emptier of heirlooms, still maintains its imposing facade. I spend the morning in the kitchen overseeing the dinner preparations while fielding increasingly frantic calls from various family members. The caterers will use the modern silverware. I explain to Victoria for the 3rd time since James donated the family silver to the homeless shelter. We thought it appropriate to embrace a simpler approach this year. Her sharp intake of breath carries clearly over the phone. We both know there's nothing simple about the Sterling family Christmas dinner. It's always been a showcase of their wealth, their history, their untouchable status in the community. James hasn't emerged from his study all morning through the door. I can hear him on the phone with what sounds like his lawyer. The divorce papers sit in his desk drawer, waiting for tomorrow's performance. My own performance, however, begins tonight. The dining room looks strange without its usual decorative touches. The Tiffany lamps that once cast warm light from every corner are now illuminating the art museum's special exhibition. The display cases that held generations of sterling treasures stand empty, their glass surfaces reflecting the modern LED lights we've had to install. Margaret arrives first, 3 hours before dinner. I had to see for myself, she says, eyes scanning the transformed room. Mother said it was bad, but this. James felt it was important to share our blessings. I reply serenely, adjusting a place card, especially during the holidays. He gives me a sharp look of all the Sterling family members. Margaret has always been the most perceptive. This isn't like him, she says quietly. Any of it people change, I say. Smoothing the crisp white tablecloth, not the antique lace one, of course, that's now part of the Textile Museum's Victorian collection. The other guests begin arriving as twilight falls. James's cousins, aunts, uncles, each one pausing in the doorway, taking in the conspicuous absences. The missing portrait over the fireplace, now gracing the Historical Society's walls. The bare corner where the grandfather clock once stood. The modern plates replacing the El China service. Victoria makes her entrance like a queen in exile, her spine rigid with disapproval. Eleanor, dear, she says, air kissing my cheek. The house looks different, James's idea. I reply brightly. He thought we should focus on the true meaning of Christmas rather than material displays. Her eyes narrow slightly. We both know James would never willingly strip the house of its symbols of sterling supremacy. But she can't say that without acknowledging the strange transformation her son has apparently undergone. James finally emerges from his study, looking tired and tense. He's changed into his dinner jacket, the one he always wears for important family occasions. I wonder if it's specifically for serving divorce papers, or if it's just habit. James, darling, his mother pounces immediately. Surely we could have kept just a few pieces for family occasions. He flinches almost imperceptibly. Mother, please, not now. The doorbell rings again, but this time it's not family. Sarah Chin from the Children's Hospital stands on the doorstep, accompanied by a local news crew. Mrs. Sterling, we hope to catch you both. We're doing a special piece on holiday philanthropy. And after all your family's generous donations. I watch James's face pale as I usher them into the foyer. How wonderful James was, just saying how much he enjoys inspiring others to give back. Weren't you, darling? He can't refuse. Not with cameras rolling, not with his family watching, not with his carefully crafted image at stake. Of course, he manages his lawyer training, kicking in as he finds his public smile. The timing is perfect, exactly as planned. The news crew sets up in the living room, capturing footage of the Sterling family Christmas gathering. They interview various family members about the recent wave of donations, each one forced to praise James's newfound generosity while privately seething. It's really quite extraordinary, Sarah gushes to the camera. The Sterling family has transformed our children's hospital. The grandfather clock in our lobby has become a symbol of hope for our patients. Victoria excuses her to the powder room. Margaret hovers near the drinks cart, pouring herself a larger scotch than usual. James stands rigidly by the fireplace, watching his family's legacy being broadcast across the city as an example of charitable giving. Finally, we move to dinner. The modern place settings gleam under the new lighting, their very ordinariness. A rebuke to the Sterling tradition of excess empty spaces on the walls and shelves. Seem to echo with absence before we begin. Victoria announces, clutching her wine glass like a shield. I'd like to propose a toast to family traditions and the importance of preserving our heritage. The pointed comment hangs in the air. James shifts uncomfortably in his seat, the divorce papers in his study drawer. Surely weighing on his mind, he hadn't planned on this audience for tomorrow's performance, hadn't expected the news crew that will inevitably return for his Christmas Day announcement. I raise my glass, meeting his eyes across the table to share our blessings. I counter. and the joy of giving the sterling silver knife that should have carved the turkey has found a new home in its place. A modern carving set gleams accusingly. Each missing piece tells its own story. Each absence, a note in the symphony of dissolution I've conducted tomorrow. James will try to serve his divorce papers, but tonight I watch him watching his family's distress, understanding too late that some surprises can't be controlled, some performances can't be scripted, and some revenge is best served not cold, but piece by precious piece. Christmas morning dawns bright and cold. The news crew returns early, setting up their equipment outside the Sterling mansion for a follow-up piece on family philanthropy. During the holidays, they explain when James answers the door. His face tightens, but he can't turn them away. Not after last night's performance. I'm in the kitchen arranging breakfast pastries on modern plates. When Victoria arrives, she's early even for her Eleanor. She says, her voice carrying that particular note of aristocratic distress. We must talk about James. Of course, I reply, sliding a coffee cup toward her. Not the Royal Copenhagen china. Those pieces now reside in various museums across the city. He's been so inspiring lately, hasn't he? Her perfectly manicured fingers grip the ordinary ceramic mug like it's personally offended her. This has gone far enough. The family silver, the artwork, the books. Everything we've preserved for generations gone. In a matter of weeks. And now these reporters. James believes in transparency, I say smoothly, especially when it comes to when charitable giving. This doorbell times again. This time it's Margaret, followed closely by the other family members, all arriving hours before the scheduled dinner. The news of the media presence has spread, drawing them like moths to a flame of potential scandal. James remains in his study, presumably rehearsing his divorce announcement. He doesn't know that I've invited every major news outlet in the city to cover the Sterling families. Christmas Day philanthropy celebration. They're gathering outside now, setting up cameras, preparing to broadcast the final act of my carefully orchestrated performance. Mrs. Sterling, one of the reporters, catches me in the hallway. We heard there's going to be a major announcement today. Oh yes, I smile. James has something very special planned. The morning creeps toward noon. Family members cluster in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. The absence of heirlooms seems to press in on them. Each empty space, a reminder of their diminishing legacy. Victoria has taken up residence in the living room, holding court among the remaining decorative pieces, like a queen surveying the ruins of her kingdom at precisely 100 out. James emerges from his study. He's changed into his best suit, the one he wears for important court appearances. The divorce papers are in his breast pocket. I can see the slight bulge against the expensive wool. Before we begin dinner, he announces, his lawyer voice carrying across the room. I have something important to share with the family. The reporters perk up, cameras focusing. This is the moment they've been waiting for. Though not the one James had planned. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Victoria interjects, sensing something amiss. No, Mother, James says firmly. This needs to be said. He reaches into his jacket, fingers closing around the papers that he thinks will destroy me. That's when the breaking news alert chimes on everyone's phone simultaneously. Sterling family completes historic donation campaign. The headline reads, Entire collection of family heirlooms given to public institutions. James freezes divorce papers halfway out of his pocket. The reporter from the local news station steps forward, microphone ready. Mr. Sterling, can you comment on your family's unprecedented charitable giving? Our sources indicate that virtually every historical piece in the Sterling collection has been donated to various institutions across the city. The blood drains from his face as his phone continues to buzz with notifications. Every institution I've worked with over the past weeks has coordinated their final press releases for this moment. The Art Museum, the Historical Society, the Children's Hospital, all simultaneously announcing their Sterling acquisitions. James stammers, his carefully prepared divorce speech. Forgotten James has always believed in sharing our family's legacy. I step in smoothly. Haven't you, darling, as he said. Just yesterday, material possessions mean nothing compared to helping others, the reporters scribble. Eagerly, Victoria sinks into her chair, her face ashen. Margaret watches with dawning comprehension, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. But I didn't, James begins. Then stops. He can't deny it. not with weeks of public donations in his name, not with the media recording his every word, not with his family's reputation hanging by a thread. The divorce papers slip from his fingers, falling to the floor between us. A reporter's camera flash captures the moment. James Sterling, philanthropist extraordinaire, dropping legal documents at his own Christmas charity celebration. "Are those divorce papers?" Margaret asked loudly, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly silent room. The reporters siege forward, cameras clicking rapidly. James stands, frozen. His careful plan shattered as the story spins wildly, beyond his control. "How interesting," I say, my voice pitched to carry planning to serve. Divorce papers on Christmas Day, while publicly donating the entire family collection to charity. "How generous of you, James." The implications hit everyone at once. Victoria's outraged gasp, Margaret's surprised laugh, the reporters' excited, murmuring all blend into a symphony of chaos. "You see," I continue, addressing the cameras directly, "James believed in surprising me today, and I believed in surprising him right back. After all, marriage is about sharing, isn't it? I simply shared his family's treasures with those who would appreciate them more." The story writes itself in the reporters' eager eyes. Wealthy man plans. Christmas Day divorce. Wife orchestrates massive charitable gift. Live campaign in his name. The Sterling family legacy transformed from private wealth to public treasure, all because of one man's poorly timed attempt at discretion. James stands amid the ruins of his plan. His reputation, his family's heritage, all undone by his own desire for a dramatic exit. The divorce papers lie forgotten on the floor, as reporters pepper him with questions about his philanthropic motivations, his commitment to public service, his decision to donate generations of family history, and I, the soon-to-be ex, Mrs. Sterling, stand in the background, watching as my husband's Christmas surprise transforms into a very different kind of holiday story. Sometimes, after all, the best gifts are the ones you never intended to give. The days following Christmas unfold, like scenes from a particularly vindictive play. The media can't get enough of the story. Sterling family legacy from private wealth to public treasure, every major newspaper and local station runs features on the institutions that receive donations. Each piece of the scattered Sterling collection becoming part of a larger narrative about generosity and public good. James moves out of the mansion. 3 days after Christmas, leaving behind empty walls and hollow spaces where generations of history once stood. His lawyer sends a different set of papers. Not the divorce documents he'd planned to serve, but rather a desperate attempt to recover some of the donated items. "It's no use," Margaret tells him over coffee in her downtown apartment. I hear about these meetings through the family grapevine, which has suddenly become remarkably chatty. The donations are legal, public, and very, very final. Fighting them would only make you look worse. He's right. Of course, every donation was made with impeccable documentation, each bearing James's perfectly replicated signature. Challenging them would mean admitting to either fraud or incompetence, neither of which the Sterling family can afford. In the court of public opinion, Victoria takes to her bed for a week emerging only to issue a carefully worded statement about the family's commitment to community service. The reporters love it, spinning yet another angle on the story. Sterling matriarch embraces family's philanthropic turn. I visit the Children's Hospital on New Year's Eve, watching young patients gather around the grandfather clock as it counts down. The final minutes of the year, Saren joins me, clipboard in hand. "The impact has been extraordinary," she says, showing me the latest donation figures since the Sterling collection story broke. Our year-end contributions have tripled. Everyone wants to be part of the movement. Similar reports come from other institutions. The Art Museum extends its Tiffany lamp exhibition due to unprecedented attendance. The Historical Society creates a special Sterling family legacy tour, showcasing the donated pieces in their historical context. The homeless shelter reports record volunteer numbers inspired by the story of the donated silver service. James's law partners distance themselves quietly but firmly, a man who can't control his own family narrative. They reason can't be trusted with client stories. He takes a leave of absence, retreating to a cousin's beach house to reflect on his priorities. The divorce still happens, but not on his terms. My lawyer presents a settlement that would make most divorce attorneys weep with joy. James signs without argument. After all, what's left to fight over the mansion stands empty of everything but modern furniture and recent purchases. The family legacy he was so desperate to protect has been thoroughly, publicly, and legally dispersed. You've changed everything, Margaret says when she visits in late January. She's the only Sterling still speaking to me, and I suspect it's partly out of admiration for the execution of my plan. The family will never be the same. That was rather the point, I reply, pouring her tea in a plain white cup. She laughs. Sharp, genuine. Do you know what? Mother said yesterday she actually claimed it was her idea all along. Some grand plan to modernize the family's image. She's rewriting history as we speak. The Sterlings have always been good at that. I observe the story takes on a life of its own. Magazine articles about the Great Sterling Donation lead to discussions about wealth inequality and social responsibility. The family name, once synonymous with old money and careful preservation, becomes associated with charitable giving and community engagement. Victoria, ever the survivor, begins giving lectures about the importance of sharing privileged history with the wider community. She never mentions my name or James's planned Christmas surprise crafting. Instead, a narrative about planned philanthropy and social consciousness. James eventually returns to the city, chastened and changed. I see him sometimes at charity events. The Sterling name still carries weight in philanthropic circles, though for very different reasons now. He's learned to smile and nod when people praise his generosity, to accept awards for his visionary approach to family legacy. The divorce finalizes in early spring. I don't attend the court hearing. I'm too busy giving a tour of the Children's Hospital to potential donors, showing them the grandfather clock that has become a symbol of the institution's transformation. The Sterling family's generosity inspired us to think differently about legacy, I tell them, watching children gather around the clock's gleaming face. Every piece of history can have a second life, a new purpose. Later that evening, I visit the art museum. The Tiffany lamps cast their warm glow over new exhibits, their light reaching far more people than they ever did in the Sterling mansion in the reading room of the university library. Students pore over first edition, Dickens, the books finally fulfilling their purpose of being read. Rather than displayed, Margaret joins me for dinner at a casual restaurant, no sterling silver or fine china in sight. James signed the final paperwork today, she informs me, ordering a bottle of wine. You know what he said. At least the family name means something different. Now different, I agree, but not diminished. And that's perhaps the most ironic twist in this tale. Of revenge in attempting to preserve the Sterling legacy through careful hoarding and controlled narratives, the family had actually limited its impact by dispersing their treasures by forcing their history into the light of public service. I had paradoxically ensured that the Sterling name would be remembered not just as a symbol of wealth, but as a catalyst for change. Victoria still hosts her family dinners, though now on modern plates, in a house stripped of its historical weight. James continues his legal practice, though his clients tend to be nonprofits and charitable foundations these days. The Sterling family adapts as old money always does, finding new ways to maintain their dignity in changed circumstances. And I keep the newspaper clipping from Christmas Day, not as a reminder of revenge, served cold, but as proof that sometimes the most devastating response to betrayal is to transform it into something meaningful. The Sterling legacy lives on, not in locked vaults and private collections, but in public spaces and shared experiences, touching more lives than James or Victoria ever imagined possible. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about taking something away, it's about giving it to everyone else.